advancements, free SHS and everything else, do we have the platform at least now to now propel us to the next stage, so we know that our education system in Ghana is getting to be at par with international standards? Sika, do you think?
I believe that since independence, we've made some strides, obviously, from 30% of the nation being educated at around independence to now 75%, and it's growing. And we see it everywhere. We see a lot of private institutions that are cropping up and educating. They're full. Ghana basically is deriving some income from providing education to some of our neighbors who come here for tertiary education. And, you know, I believe we've made some strides, but like we would all agree, there's a lot of room for improvement. I was somebody who never understood why we needed to promote free SHS. I personally didn't understand, but I understood it eventually when
promoting what way?
The free, you know, why the free SHS for everybody, like universal. It doesn't have to be I thought it didn't have to be universal. I thought that it was more important to focus on basic education being free, so that everybody, at least every single Ghanaian, can write their name, write and read where they're going around the country. So we had the free SHS, and it wasn't until somebody close to me benefited from it that I understood why it was important. Now, but I felt it needed to be administered in a different way so that it would be equitable, it would be effective, and it would be accessible to the people that really need it. So people who could afford to send their kids to school and pay for their education were, you know,
getting it for free.
Exactly, getting it for free. And, you know, it was attendant with all kinds of, you know, Ghana, you know, you have to pass the back door for things to happen. Schools were teeming with students, different track education system. I'm not sure to what extent the kids are really benefiting from the system that as we have it now. And I would hope that even though President Mahama said he would not scrap it, they would come up with a better way. They would analyze or review, like he said, reflect upon what has happened in that policy implementation, and then come up with a way to reset it that it would be more equitable and more beneficial to the Ghanaian.
Mm-hmm. What are we lacking in terms of education? You're a senior research fellow. I'm sure you can refer to a host of studies or investigations into some of these matters.
I think the major issue is that structurally we've not really thought through what it is that we want education to do for us as a people. The educational system we have as of now was inherited from the colonialists. It was meant to serve a particular purpose.
We haven't learned to personalize it. We haven't owned it.
Exactly, we haven't owned it. As we speak today, there are a lot of projects at our institute.
Do you mean on the tertiary level or basic level?
Not even at the basic level, all the way to the tertiary level. There are structural issues that we need to grapple with. So even if we were to take the basic level, where we had issues with language use, we're all punished for speaking our local languages. Who does that to his own culture? Clearly, that was an idea coming from somebody telling you that. Exactly, we even have labels for them. We have kids in school singing songs during worship that demonize our traditional religion. We have a lot of host of issues that I can list. And when you come to the tertiary level, we are still grappling with how to decolonize higher education. Because some of the issues, some of the methods, even the theories that some of the times we use to even do our research are Western. That in some cases, I'm not saying that all of them, because they are Western, we shouldn't use them. But in some cases, do not even reflect our realities. So there are issues that we need to address. And personally, I think the challenge has to do with the idea that we are going to school to get work, when fundamentally the essence of education is to, one, educate people about their society and cultures, and two, to equip them with critical thinking skills to come and transform society. You are not coming out there to find a job.
That's
you come out to fix society's problem. And that is the essence of education.
So now I'm asking myself, would I still go to school if the goal wasn't to get a job at the end of the day?
And to
I guess it's
pick
a
up-
question he's now brought to my attention. Would I still allow, you know, my next generation, children, grandchildren, to go to school if, you know, I win the lottery
Yes.
and they didn't have to go to school in order to make ends meet or find some other? Please don't come and say I stay close to my class watching. I beg you.
There's nothing wrong with that. But Dr. Adoti makes a good point in terms of the fact that education should not end with your graduation. It should equip you for the society, for the marketplace, to come and be a problem solver, to even release your creative abilities, your talents, and it should find space and a room for expression within the society. Why do we always look towards countries like the West, the US, and, you know, there's so much that their education does for them and prepares them for the marketplace, and that's what we need to be doing, because we have failed to do that to a great extent. That is why you have the huge youth unemployment that we see of nearly 20% in 2024. So if we are able to have an educational system that has the society in mind and what that education should do for us as a society, then the curriculum would reflect that. I mean, in a place like Australia, where I spent some time, you would have, they have 2 tracks where somebody who gets the secondary education can now, at the end of that, decide whether they want to go into the technical or vocational aspect, to be a plumber, a tradesperson, a blue-collar worker, or to be to continue on into university. And they make that aspect of tradesmen and blue-collar work, they value it. They have licenses for plumbers, so that a plumber that comes, you call to come and service your plumbing problems, is a certified, insured, licensed professional. He is coming to solve your problem. I mean, if they don't, they are liable to make sure that it is done. So clearly, in a society like that, they value any kind of job. In Ghana, we don't. We still only value jobs like doctor, lawyer, and the rest. Whereas a market woman has value. Somebody has, all of these elements are what make our society go round.
Has the Ghanaian culture evolved enough to a place? I think it has. I'm tempted to say yes. Where parents, traditionally, when you're growing up, your mom or your dad would determine where you go, basically, and what profession you should even pursue, assuming that you're intelligent enough by school standards to get into those fields. Are we still at that point where our culture, our society is determining what our education should be, or have we, you know, ventured out into that unknown to make those decisions ourselves?
Well, I think I'll look at it from this angle. When you talk about the society, take the way our educational system is structured. If you were getting into higher education, the best go to the university, right? Maybe the second tier will go to maybe the professional ones. Then the third tier will go to teacher education institutions. To the extent that when we were growing up, we're even threatened with, if you didn't pass, you go to teacher training college.
My dad threatened me that he will buy a sewing machine for me and I will be sewing in the corner, and that straightened my whole resolve. And maybe I would have been the best fashion designer.
But that is fundamentally a problem, because if the teachers are the ones who are supposed to train the next generation of leaders, but you are sieving them and the 30 other people are the ones ending up to teach our kids, then fundamentally there's a problem. So structurally, these are sort of structural issues that I'm talking about, that we need to address some of these things. Once we get a sense of what it is that we want education to do for us, then some of these issues will be addressed, so that we don't use these things as stress, so that if you don't do X, you end up being a farmer or you end up being a tailor. Why would we be doing this to other professions? Because clearly, we really haven't thought through some of these issues.
I have to say that I'm a little more optimistic when it comes to whether, that traditional way of looking at education and what education should do or where it should lead you. has done for us. I believe that our young people are more and more, and some of their parents are more and more growing to accept the fact that, okay, if my child is exhibiting certain talents or in certain areas, I shouldn't force them to become a doctor when they don't have any aptitude for that. I should rather naturally steer them in the direction where their God-given talent is pointing towards. And I'm seeing a lot more of that. Whether these kids are being successful on a larger scale, it is still new. You know, there are fewer kids that are showing success maybe in the arts and so on and so forth, but their parents are urging them in that direction a lot more than perhaps my parents would have, or even your parents would have at the time you were growing up.
At the Independence Parade, and we keep referring to what we saw at Jubilee House, a scaled-down version, but still very much what we are used to. And because we are talking about education and how we've been able to, you know, combine the traditional ways of thinking into a modern one, we are still seeing school children who are doing the cultural dances, school children doing the drum appellations, school children doing the poetry recitals, and really taking the baton from a generation behind and then stepping up to the mic to showcase the culture. That's the picture we want to see, isn't it?
Yes.
That we are not leaving the past behind, but we are bringing it along, albeit in a transformative way. Before I leave the parade bit, I want us to talk about health for a minute, but the concerns that at this time of the year, the weather is not good, and we bring the children and we put them under the hot sun. Even some of the security personnel also fall victim to the vagaries of the weather. And so we should rethink how we conduct our Independence Day parades. Is this a rethink for you? Is this something that could possibly stay? Would you want it to be like this? Or would you want us to go back to, some say, the good old days, where, you know, the tomato seller was there because she's also a Ghanaian, all the artisans were there because they also contribute so much to, the veterans were there, and all that? What's your thinking?
I think this pared down celebration, which is really in essence a symbolic thing, it has sent the right signal. If you are saying that you're going to cut costs, I understand it costs about 5% of what it would have cost.
1 million Ghana cedis.
Okay, so that to me sends the right signal. It still does the right thing. I heard your comments earlier when you were on the previous show. It sends the right signal. You know, we didn't miss much, and there is a place perhaps when Ghana turns 70 at that parade, we can have the grand show of, you know, involving and being more inclusive. But I don't think that anything was missing. I think that it was a positive thing that we saw today. As you know, we saw that there was consideration for the children. They didn't have to be under the sun for too long. It was short, it was succinct, and it was to the point. And I think that the government should be commended for that.
Dr. Adosei, what do you think?
Well, for me, it was brief. I like brief things. It was beautiful. I didn't see the people who were invited, so I cannot say whether the ordinary people in court were also part and parcel of the program. If that wasn't the case, then that would be a problem for me, because they were also part and parcel of the independence struggle. So I wouldn't want us to limit it to just the elite. We need to, it should be a collective thing. It's a day where we all have to come together and reflect on where we've come from, the roles that our various forebears played, and how we can also take on the mantle. So it should be a collective thing. So it's an occasion that we should all come together and celebrate together. But if it is the case that it's just the same old people who have been running the country and sending us down the abyss for the past couple of decades, then that would be a problem.
So how do we do that while maintaining security? Because the police this morning, there was a few roadblocks, so I'm sure you struggled to get to GVC this morning, because we are just a street, more or less, separate, you know, the GVC other side from the Jubilee House. So lots of restrictions and movements around the area, because obviously security, some of our toppest, you know, topmost people were on that ground. So how do we make it open? How do we make the regular Ghanaians still feel a part of the Independence Day parade whilst maintaining the cost depreciation or restriction, and then making it inclusive, like Sika said?
Well, I'm not an event planner.
I think you can't have one thing and the opposite.
Yes, but I'm sure there was
It's like
some
eating your
method
cake
to
and
say-
having it.
No, I think we can do both. I think there was some method to selecting some particular schools. So I'm sure they could have gone to the market, get the market association, some random groups of people. You could just go to Tudo and pick some people there, but make sure that the security detail checks their background and all that. So it's not too difficult to do. I don't think it's something that cannot be done.
You're
Yeah.
absolutely. I agree
Whichever
with
formula was used to arrive at Temasco for
I know that is
the
just-
song, it's a perfect method. Don't change it. Always use it. So that I'm to go and
that
sing.
would be unfair to some of us who went to school in Ebri
But
and
now you are
Cape Coast
blaming
and the
the
rest.
formula. Pi
You
r
see.
square is 22/7.
But, well, okay, so this year is Temasco, and I hope next year it will be Ebri Girls.
No problem. We are the first one at the Jubilee House, and that makes it worthwhile for us. But we are talking about young people. And the key in the last campaign really was for young people to feel that their contributions in terms of hard work and smart work brings a positive change in their lives. Now, unemployment continues to be a huge problem for Ghana. We've started and restarted many times to get the levels down. In recent times, it's been even more difficult. Now there's this whole rollout of activities, coding, 10 million to be put into different forms of, things for young people to take advantage of. Can we finally say we are getting there? There's a platform for unemployment to be nipped in the bud.
Again, I believe that the right noise is being made. I believe the right gestures and messages are being sent. However, the truth of the pudding is in the eating. I mean, like when it comes to the actual implementation, how realistic can this really be? And I would go back to the education issue. Don't forget that our youth, some of them are not educated. And according to the statistics, the ones that are not educated and are involved in the informal sector tend to be more, are more entrepreneurial. They are more employed than the ones that have been to secondary school, for example.
They are more employable.
Yes, they are
have better
employed.
skills?
They don't have better skills, but they are out there in the market
Street
providing
smart.
what the market needs in terms of the akpakpakpa or whatever they do to survive. So whoever was looking at these statistics is drawing the conclusion that those youth who have not been to school, percentage-wise, tend to be more engaged in some economic activity compared to those who have been to secondary school, for example. So what does that tell us? It goes back to what the secondary schools or what our education system is preparing the kids for, so that when they come out, there aren't any jobs or not enough jobs that are absorbing them. If you don't know somebody, you don't get employed. If you don't, the usual thing that we have in Ghana. So I think I would go back to the drawing board, look at our education system. Even if somebody should be able to take up some of these economic activities that these uneducated young people are doing and feel a certain pride and apply themselves to those activities. However, our lawmakers, our policy makers have to also engage them in the conversation, engage the youth, whether they are employed or not, engage them in terms of what they would want to see. We shouldn't impose policies on them, but our youth are very savvy. They're very dynamic, they're very smart, they're very lit, they know what's going on. And so engaging them also in the policy making would give them a sense of ownership. So when somebody has a sense of ownership, they would give more than 100% to what it is that you are saying that you want to do for them.
Okay. So our grandmothers told us, if your mother is the one who told you, you are older than me, so okay. Our grandmothers told us about opportunities that they had as children to get a job, especially at vacation time. So they would tell you that when school was on a break, I would work at this factory and I would make X amount of money and I would bring it home and would use it for this and this and that. we've come a long way from those days where the factories were there and, you know, you could get a job as a factory hand and other opportunities were available. The youth of Ghana now do not have that level of, you know, access to as many jobs, especially when it comes to government jobs or state jobs. Are we, I keep saying, are we on course to fixing it?
There
Because
might
it
be
looks
jobs,
like
but they don't value them
it
as
looks,
jobs.
they don't value them as jobs.
They may not.
I've had this concern
Yeah.
in America and other parts of
Yeah.
Europe where young people, for example, may not want to go into farming.
Yeah, they
and
wouldn't.
so even if the opportunities exist in their country, immigrants come to do those jobs and they don't. But historically, what have we done with unemployment and what are we doing differently, Dr. Aditi?
Well, Nkrumah tried to set up factories, basically to industrialize and move us away from this raw material, the colonial economy, basically. Unfortunately, he wasn't too successful before his overthrow in '66. Other governments have tried, but not necessarily been very effective in doing that. So there are still issues that we need to address. I think one, there's also these despair. That is what is driving many of the youth to want to leave. If they thought that they had something done, or if they thought that there would be opportunities for them, probably many of them will stay. But now the hope, it's about hope. Many of them just have lost hope in the system, and they want to just go out there and make certain things. They think that probably even living may give them better opportunities out there. So I think there are two things that we need to address. One is the feeling, or not necessarily the feeling, but we've seen it, that if you don't belong to the right party, you will not get anything. So if you are not connected, even if you finish school, you may not get a job. So that is one leg of it. And the other leg being that people think that the solution lies outside there. Some people have had the opportunity to travel and have come back. And I think we should be hearing more of those stories to let people understand
That is if they will tell you the truth, because
yes,
sometimes
we need to engage people who
the
can tell us the
reality
truth.
of life abroad and the truthfulness.
Yes.
You know, it's almost a slap in the face. You can't lie to yourself when you are in some
But
certain
again,
countries,
if it's
because
a deliberate
the
policy
system
by the
will
government.
catch up with you. But in Ghana, especially when people come back on holiday,
Mm-hmm.
there's a different perception.
Exactly,
And so-
but these are not the people as a government you want to be relying on. You are driving a policy that is trying to change people's mindset that we can all make it here, you need to stay. So you're not going to be relying on somebody who comes 2 weeks and changes maybe $500 and goes around enjoying. That's not the kind of person you're relying on. You are gathering data. And like I said, these institutions are there. We have people who are specialists in migration, who've done serious, you want to use the data to drive some of these things. So you engage people who've done serious work, who can tell the real story, not just part of the story. So it should be a deliberate policy to let people know that, yes, nobody's saying that migration is a bad thing. Migration has been part of human history since the day we were created. People move from place to place. And interestingly, people...
In search of greener pastures.
Exactly. Largely people move, even if you look at the data, largely people are moving within the continent rather than even going out, which clearly tells us that there are
Lots
also
of
opportunities.
conflicts is causing a lot of people to relocate from...
Yes, but a lot of
where they
people are also
originally
moving within the neighborhoods just to trade and do all sorts of jobs. So opportunities also exist within these economies.
I'm
So we
glad you
just-
mentioned opportunities. What would
Yes.
you say? You want to make a point.
I just want to make a point, just complete the point that he alluded
Okay.
to, is that one of the things I look at is, whilst our youth are struggling and killing themselves to leave the country and paying all kinds of fraudsters to get them out of the country, here you have all kinds of foreigners, Lebanese, what are they doing here? Indians, what are they doing? What are these other people doing in Ghana?
What do they know that we don't know?
Do they know that we don't know? I mean, we welcome all of them because they are adding some value to the economy. But then we need to know that whilst we are going out, some people are seeing this place as a land of opportunity. And so we need to pause and think about that carefully. And see what we can do. Of course, they come with backing, capital backing, and so on. What can we do? How can we also have a homegrown capital base where we are able to invest in the initiatives of our youth, for instance. Those are the kinds of things we need to be looking at, because Ghana is a land of milk and honey, as far as I'm concerned. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm waiting. I believe that.
I was about to say, like, milk and honey.
It is.
Pass it around. Pass the milk and honey around. But
Okay,
because
cocoa
we're talking
and,
about
cocoa.
opportunities, yes, cocoa is good. Cocoa is good. If I were to ask each of you to name the perhaps 2 opportunities, biggest ones that we have missed as a country, take a minute to think about it for a minute. What would you say is the biggest opportunity we have missed as a country? I'll start with you, Doc.
I think one, it's how we've utilized our human resource. Most often than not, when we talk about resources, we're talking about natural resources, the minerals and all that. But even that, there's also a problem to that, because largely these definitions of what our resources are driven from outside. They are able to see the value of what it is that they call a resource, and are able to utilize it and make something out of it. But when we also call it a resource, what have we done with it? So is it a resource for us, or is somebody else who is telling us it's a resource and we've also bought into it? So we go about saying that we are a country that is full of natural resources. What have we done with them? So clearly we also need to define what we call resources. What are the things that we find in the spaces that we can identify and call our resources? Because until we are able to transform these things into something that is productive, that transforms our life, then there's no point in calling these things resources. So for me, there's a need for us to address that problem. And secondly, again, it comes to the human resource, which goes back to education again. Because education is what is driving the way we shape our human resources. Every parent wants his or her kid to go to school. As we say, the figures we're looking at with the free SHS and all that, a lot of people are going to go to school. What are we doing with people's mindset? How are we transforming? How are we shaping these people? What kind of skill set are we equipping with these people? So that is something that we need to really work on. Until we address these issues, the human resource base, how we are able to transform people's mindset, the kind of skill set we equip people with, I think we'll have a problem. But the leaders cannot do it alone. They need us to back them up. And if we don't have the skills, what are we going to do?
Human and education, the resources. Okay, so those are the 2 big ones for Sika. What are yours?
And I have a challenge for you. I agree with him, but I'm sitting here thinking that even corruption is an opportunity.
Corruption is an opportunity.
Yes, it's an opportunity for all of us to say no, and for all of us to work towards making sure that it is. I don't believe that we can achieve zero corruption, but I believe we can achieve a relatively much lower corruption base. I was at the talk by the new special prosecutor, Mr. Kisi Ajapang. The other day, he had a very, very interesting talk, and it became clear that, he has this impossible job to do, but it is up to all Ghanaians to be of help, to also say to themselves, listen, what can we do to minimize or, if not, eliminate corruption? So I see it as an opportunity in a different sense. Not because, look, it's an opportunity because if we calculate the damage that it does to our society in terms of development, then if every Ghanaian rises up and says, look, I am not for corruption, I am going to do this, or this is going to be my position in terms of corruption, then it will accrue some real benefits to all of us.
Has the history told us so, though? Because if you look at Ghana's political and social structure, that in itself has been blamed for some of the levels of corruption that we've seen, because we're in a society where you're told that if you go to a chief's palace, don't go empty-handed, and you go into certain homes and there are expectations. You go to your MP's house to ask for money to marry your 3rd wife. I mean, if that's for you, that's fine. But if it's not, then do you understand the picture I'm painting? So
yes,
our politics and our culture, some people say, is partly to blame for the corruption that we are seeing.
Yes, and I remember at this talk, the special prosecutor was trying to get Mr. Prempeh, Professor Prempeh, to include in the reform of the Constitution something that would address some of these questions, so that it would make his job easier as the special prosecutor. I mean, in other countries, you know, we can go and look at examples elsewhere. For instance, in the U.S., a government official cannot accept gifts worth beyond a certain amount. So if we have those kinds of guidelines, very strict guidelines, it will help tremendously in curtailing without us losing our cultural, beautiful cultural value of giving as a way of saying thank you. I don't see anything wrong with it. It's when somebody it goes over the top, then you yourself receiving that kind of gift, you should say, hey, what does this man want from me, or what does this woman want from me? And so if the government comes and says, okay, the constitution or whatever legislature comes and says there should be a cap.
So a threshold.
Yes. Then we would know what we are dealing with.
And I would think that Dr. Adotey should be very detailed. It's not enough to say,
Yes.
we have to give her an iPhone.
No.
You see, there's iPhone 7.
In terms of value.
iPhone 25. So it's the value. There should be a certain value, agreed value attached to it. What do you think? Do our cultural and other values make it difficult to fight corruption?
No, not at all. Because let's not confuse courtesy calls and giving a bottle of schnapps or 2 bottles of schnapps to achieve with encouraging corruption. How
As
does that
opposed to
encourage-
SUVs and big
Correct.
Because
cars.
people get SUVs, people get
Yes, but
contracts,
these are the
others
cultural
get other
practices we are
things.
talking about. When we go into these spaces, we give certain things as courtesy to pay homage to our elders.
But Dr. Adotey, some of those things may be huge. Someone may present a private jet.
To
And
a
if you
chief, you might believe.
if you present a private jet to a chief as thank you for welcoming us into your
Y-
palace
yes,
and
what
for
I'm
hearing
trying-
us out.
No, what I'm trying to
could
do
be.
is to draw the relationship between some of our cultural practices and the kind of corruption we are witnessing today. That is not to say that within our system, corruption did not exist. But let's also not forget that within our traditional setups too, these things were frowned upon. So if you were in leadership position and you were doing things that were not acceptable to the society, you could be destood. So we need to understand that, yes, gifts were given to elders and leaders of the communities. But I didn't necessarily mean that they wanted you to go and take things that did not belong to the state and use it. That wasn't the idea. So we've come to a space where I think it also has to do with our colonial history, where initially people's idea about the government was totally different from what they saw as belonging to their community or the family. The government was somewhere, and stealing from the government was okay. So if the people came and they took away, we can also go there and take some. And these are some of the transformations that we said we're talking about. These are some of the things we need to change. That these things are collectively owned. If you pick X year and you drop Y year, we all suffer. Don't go there thinking that because personally it doesn't cost me to do that, then it doesn't affect the next person. So it's this idea about being divorced from the state, being divorced from the government. So I can go into those spaces and pick stuff. That is usually where the issue is. But then once, as Sikai said, we all agree that, yes, we can all give gifts, but there should be a limit, there should be a threshold. And we are good at passing these laws or enacting laws. The issue has to do with enforcement. How are we going to go about that? Can we, for instance, sanction a minister if we hear that he did something of that sort? Or we are going to wait when the little boy in the ministry takes something, then we suspend him for that. That for me is an issue.
So crack one whip for everybody.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
The rule should not, no different strokes for
Equal
different
strokes
folks.
for
For equal folks.
different
say?
folks. Yeah.
Okay, you talked about people feeling disconnected from power, and a lot of people have expressed those sentiments, especially in the lead up to the 2024 campaign. How do we build that connection between a party or a group of people in policy position, in ruling position, to feel the reality of the ordinary person who walks the streets of any part of Ghana? How do we build that link?
I would say that once the government, engages the public, and the word engage is a very broad term, but, I wonder how many people even have been asked about what they think about the 24-hour economy, for instance. How many people have been, how many people's opinions, there should be some kind of, public campaign or public information campaign where people's opinions are brought to the table so that we can see where different Ghanaians are feeling the pinch or feeling whatever, and there should be some empathy towards their plight. I don't know other ways in doing this other than
The current administration has done, a conversation on education, another one on the economy, trying to find, ways to, as the government phase, reflect, review, and reset. Are those the kind of engagements you're talking about?
Even it has to go down to the local levels. It has to be felt. I mean, Accra isn't Ghana. We have to feel it in the people in the rural areas have to feel these things, have to know that their needs are of concern. Even if they're not being met, they are of concern. They have to feel that something is, I mean, I understand that the president is going to the Volta region today to go and commensurate with the people for whatever it is that, for the challenges that they are facing. And I think those kinds of gestures are positive and can make people feel like a
connection.
They're connected to the power base. However, I frown upon the fact that maybe somebody will say, the Volta region is the World Bank of the NDC, and that's why he's going. No, he should be able to go anywhere where there is an issue, and therefore, that would be the statesmanship that I would like to see our leader exhibiting.
Okay, we want to invite you into the conversation. We'll open our phone lines so you can have a say. 68 years of our lives as a country, would you say that we are living the dream of our forefathers, or are we close? Or are we just too far away? The number to call 0203 803174, 0203803174. Call us and share your thoughts with us. We are live on GBC News and GTV. We're also streaming across our social media platforms, GBC, the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, or GTV Ghana. At the table, Dr. Adote is from the Institute of African Studies, and Madam Sika is also a business and leadership management expert. They are sharing their thoughts on what we've seen so far today. I'm waiting to hear from you, so let us know. Let's talk about our culture a little bit, because the temptation is, once we start back on the road of, I wanted us to go onto our roads infrastructure and how far we've come from Nkrumah's time, perhaps we'll get to it. But let's talk about our culture for a minute. Every year we are told that when language is concerned, for example, less and less people, especially younger people, are speaking the local languages fluently. Where did we lose it?
Again, we need to go back to the colonial period, where a deliberate effort was made to basically demonize various aspects of our culture, and language was a major part of it. So yes, in some cases, interestingly, some of the colonial administrations pushed for some of the local languages. They helped in putting them into writing and all that. But
it really is the irony, right? Because we saw missionaries coming in to help Bible Society translating the Bible into different languages. I'll let you finish that thought. We have a caller on the line. Thank you for making the time. This is GBC News and GTV. What's your name and where are you calling us from?
My name is George.
Hello, can you hear us?
From East Legon.
Are you with us?
Yeah, so first of all, happy independence to all of us. And I wish, honestly, it is not worth celebrating at all.
I can't hear what you're saying at all. If you can reposition yourself and then perhaps call us back. I'm so sorry
we need to
about that.
If you compare ourselves to Malaysia, compare ourselves to Singapore, compare ourselves to countries that we were ahead of, and where we are as a country, it's not worth celebrating. We should rather, if at the 5% President spoke about is done where we are going, but you even channel that money into something else. By now, there's a pregnant woman somewhere who feels, who is thinking how to get to the nearest hospital for delivery. There's another student somewhere who is learning under trees. Okay, and this is a country talking about 86 years. Look at our roads, look at our health facilities. If you look at the corruption, left, right, center. So I think that these celebrations, we should halt it. Rather, minimal like this is fine, but if you ask my view, we should halt it. Use the money into productive terms that will benefit the people of Ghana.
Thank you, sir, for your sentiments. We are 68, I beg you. We still have some 20 more years before we get to 86. So we are 68 years old. But he makes a very valid point. He says that even if we spend, we are being told we save 95% and we spend, if it's 20 million, that's about 1 million cedis. It's still 1 million that could have gone into, you know, making sure that the pregnant woman who has difficulty reaching a health facility can, you know, it will just be made a little easier for that person to access that service. So he thinks it's not worth celebrating. Oh, Massa.
That's a very important point. But again, we need to appreciate that there are also some intangible things that we need to do. Yes, you cannot place a value on someone's life. But again, we're also a nation, as I mentioned, of different groups that we need to build together. And some of these opportunities gives us, or these occasions gives us the opportunity to build a nation out of the different groups that we have. So yes, even though that money could have gone to fixing a road somewhere, building a hospital, we've also seen around our sub-region how ethnic conflicts and other kinds of conflicts are tearing nations apart. And so on such occasions, when we all come together to define our identity as Ghanaians, it's also very important that occasionally we do these things to let us know that we are one people and we need to forge forward together.
Projecting peace, and you know, that cohesion. And Maurice asked one of the guests about the importance of religious tolerance in this conversation. So it's all these things. We're seeing the Christian prayer because it's the holy month of Ramadan and our Muslim friends are fasting. It's also Lent, so our Christian friends are also in fasting. We're not sure how our traditional friends are doing, but I know that later on in the year, the festivals will kick in a lot more. And so cohesion, tolerance, perhaps, is what we are building. But we appreciate your point. There's another one who has joined us, another caller from Adenta. Thank you for making the time. What's your name?
Hello.
Hello. Thanks for joining us on GBC News and on GTV.
My name is
What's your name?
I'm calling from Adenta.
Your name? Achu, turn down the volume on your TV set so that you can hear me through the phone. Then I'll be able to hear you.
I have done so.
Excellent.
Already.
Let's hear your point. Do you think we are where we want to be?
With the language bit,
Okay.
our local language bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the colonial masters have succeeded in some way, somehow, depriving us of making good use of our local language.
They left 68 years ago. Are we still blaming them?
Which always try to look down upon other tribes if you don't speak their own language. Sometimes, for instance, I'm an Ewe, okay? If you are speaking to an Asante, a Akan person, they look down upon you. And so by so doing, if your child gets out of the house, go to school, by the time your children come back from school, they are speaking Twi.
And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Actually, I think that's a good thing.
They are speaking Twi. Because when they go to school, they look down upon them. When they speak their language, that is what happens.
So actually, here is my attempt at a response to your concern. And I'm not an expert, so perhaps the Institute of African, they have conducted actual studies into local language. So my suggestion would be if you have Ewe as your first language, for example, and your child speaks Ewe and goes to school and picks up Twi, that's a plus. That automatically makes your child bilingual. I'm a Ga, so I learned Twi from school, and that gave me a second, perhaps third after English, a third language. The more languages you speak as a Ghanaian, the more Ghanaian you are, in my opinion. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not to say also that, you know, you should believe that one tribe is superior over another. I believe that we are all equal. People don't act equal, and that's a fact. And others tend to, you know, raise their shoulders just a little bit higher. But I think that if you meet somebody who has raised their shoulders raise yours too. Be proud of who you are. Be proud of where you come from. And if they don't understand you, try and patiently explain yourself to them. There are some people who can be taught. You just leave them. But if you can, take it as an opportunity to bring someone closer to you. And on GBC and on our platforms, all languages are welcome. We broadcast in 25 different Ghanaian languages on 18 radio stations and 7 TV stations. So on our networks, you are welcome, okay? Call us. The number is 020-380-3174. I know you have a point to make, but another caller has joined us. Everyone has a lot to say. It's Independence. It's Ghana Day, and all Ghanaians need to say something. What are your thoughts on what we've discussed so far? What's your contribution? Hello, can you hear us?
Hello.
Your name and where you're calling us from?
Yeah, this is Philip calling from Akachi in the Volta.
Where?
Akachi.
Akachi, Volta
In the
region.
Volta region.
Okay, let's hear you.
Yes. Thank you very much. I think that while we minimize the celebration or we just narrow it down to the Flagstaff House, the students should not be left out. The government can organize seminars through the NCC for the students. If not, most of them will go out without knowing what the independence is about and all that. So I think that government going forward should engage the students. At least they need to know their responsibilities as citizens of this country.
Okay.
And again, I think that we are also losing most of our, in fact, if care is not taken, most of our local languages will die. You realize that
Back to the language.
it's only the English language. And if you are able to speak English language very well or you are fluent, then it's more or less tantamount to brilliance or intelligence. So we don't value our local language anymore. And it's something that government would have to going. I mean, plus two. You can write. I could write my essay. I could read my essay. But nowadays, even high school, our students cannot even read and write the local language. So please, I think that it's one of the things government should pay attention to. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And it feeds into what we were talking about before we started receiving the calls about how, from the colonial days, we've been conditioned to not speak our local languages, and we're almost bastardized for it. We think it's uncouth. People say all kinds of things about the Ga language. They say other things about other languages. But I'm a Ga, so I hear the Ga ones say it's a loud language, and it sounds so like you are fighting with people. We are passionate speakers, and we are by the coast, so sometimes the sea waves. Oh, now if you're the work, so that people will hear you. But and it's such sentiments that echo across the country. That's why we're not speaking more of our languages. Today, during the poetry recitals, we had, a lot of Ga, we had a lot of Fanti, and one of the northern languages was also represented. Of course, for a country that speaks 50+ languages, not all of them can be showcased on the platform. So we are doing good on that score, at least, aren't we?
Yeah, you are.
Okay, someone has joined us from Oyibi. Thank you for making the time. Are you with us? What's your suggestion? What's your contribution to our discussion this afternoon? I think the phone lines are just buzzing. So let's allow the Ghanaians to have their say. You're calling from Oyibi. What's your name?
My name is King.
King.
King from Oyibi.
Okay, let's hear you.
Yes, I just heard my mommy saying something. And I want to contribute towards that. He said, maybe if they want to do pray, they want to do something, they need to go to the lowest level. Also, some of us are there in the village who also know more about that. So if you are living in the village, maybe they take a decision in Accra and they want to do something, maybe the whole thing in the village, they don't involve them. They don't know their opinions very well towards what they want to do, okay?
So you're talking about being inclusive and involving.
But one of the things mommy also to know is that it is the campaign that the government has done. That's why he got the certain votes he got, and they went to the villages to do campaign about all those politics, what went Mahama Kam, what he said he would do. They went there and they said everything, and they were the one who voted. They were the one who voted. So if we should do another campaign again, I just want to ask Mommy that what campaign again for the village people to know, because Mahama went there all. And he told them, and when Mahama Kam, we see the speed, how the things are going already. So I just want to contribute towards this. Thank you.
Very well noted. So inclusive governance and making sure that all levels are heard in a national conversation. King, thank you for making that point to us. It's Independence Day, our 68th as a country, and this is GBC's special coverage of the Independence Day and events after. We have two key people at our table. Madam Sika Awono is a consultant on the Business Development and Leadership Management, and Dr. Edem Adot is a Senior Research Fellow at the Institute of African Studies, University of Ghana. You are having your say on the platform as well, and we'll take some more from you. But I want to come to my guest quickly. We're talking about the language barrier before we started answering the calls. I want you to finish that point so that Madam Sika can also contribute. Then we'll pick a couple of extra calls before we write.
Yeah, so as I was saying, it has to do with the colonial agenda to make us, look down upon our culture, and basically in doing so, accept that we're inferior to the Europeans. Unfortunately, after independence, we tried, Nkrumah, for example, was instrumental in setting up the new Institute of African Studies. And one of the things we do is to study our language and cultures and all that. So to revive this idea that we could think and talk and communicate.
I mean, the symbolism of wearing the smock at the declaration of our independence, and the fact that not just the Gold Coast at the time, but, the Ashanti, the Northern Territories, Transvolta, Togoland, the effort that went into bringing them all under this umbrella suggests that we are, originally we're different people, but now one people with one destiny. Yes,
so we haven't done so well. Again, it goes back to the way we perceive our languages. You mentioned people calling it the vernacular. And again, when we talk about international languages, I don't think any of us considers any of our local languages as international. But if you were to take Ewe, for instance, it is an international language. It is spoken in Ghana, Togo, Benin, and Nigeria. The same way if you took Hausa, you will find it spoken in all these areas. Why is it that we still think about these languages in local terms? It's the way we've been made to believe that nothing of
conditioned.
Us. Exactly. So this reset that we keep on talking about, I think the fundamental reset has to do with the mind. And until some of these things, thought patterns are changed, they're not going to go far.
This is where you have to cue Bob Marley's Emancipate Yourself from Mental Slavery and just drop it. But another caller is on Alliance. I'll give you the opportunity to make a point. But you've also joined us. Welcome to GBC News and GTV. What's your name? Where are you calling us from? And what do you have to contribute to our conversation?
I'm Akwesi calling from Gomoa.
Akwesi, you're calling from the Gomoa area?
Yeah, Gomoa Nkran.
Gomoa Nkran. Okay. Yeah. What's your suggestion? Otindene?
Yeah, my dear sister, today should be a day of mourning and crying.
Why do you think so? Mourning and crying?
Yeah, because we have lost our culture, the way we eat, the way we live. Now even traditional marriage has become problem to our ladies. All they want is white wedding. How many people in Ghana today can go to their village and eat in a mutia? Do you know mutia? Because even when they see you, doing something on that mutia, they will tell you it's local, it's past. So today should be the day for the nation to cry, because this is not the thought of Kwame Nkrumah. Everything that we do, unless the white people give us order, today we are under IMF. So can't believe. So what the essence of independence? We are not independent because I am tell us what you're supposed to do as a nation. Why should we wait for a white man to tell us what we're supposed to do? to the way we eat.
But the
way we do
IMF
our
has
things.
not
No,
suggested that you should not
the
encourage
independence
traditional
should be our
marriages.
independence.
The IMF has not
Look at-
suggested you
look at
cannot
it.
speak
Today
your
we are
own
taking
language
this- think of it,
or
today
eat
should
kinky
be a
and fish.
Local day, local language day for us. So my dear, you have lost everything, and government should do something to restore the whole back. Because Kwame Nkrumah is weeping today because looking at the back, 68 of you have wasted 68 of years. You have wasted nothing to show, nothing to boost up. Only that you can boost us peace. Apart from peace, nothing again. So our leaders should focus and do something for our generation. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your point. And I think it's a valid concern that as we become more, I'm using this word loosely, enlightened, in quote, we are leaving more and more of our culture behind. And he talked about traditional marriage and the fact that now the women don't even want to end there, and everybody wants the white wedding, not everybody. But this is where we are. Antiska, you wanted to contribute.
No, just one response to that is that culture is not static. Culture evolves. You know, it's like a ball of something that is rolling around and picking up things and discarding things here and there. But having said that, we have to have I don't think government should be responsible for everything. I think there are some custodians of our culture who don't necessarily form part of government, who are our traditional people in our villages, and who are the ones who make sure that the culture is kept alive.
Custodians of culture.
Absolutely, custodians of culture should be encouraged to keep the culture going. And now going back to the language point, I believe that charity begins at home. If you have your child in your house, before you send them out to school, you are engaging with that child. Speak your language to your child. Children have been known, children of parents that speak different languages, babies have been known to be able to assimilate the language of each parent and speak them perfectly well. And why don't we do that in our homes? It's not the school's duty to teach your child your language. It is your duty as a parent to teach your child the language that you want them to speak.
It's a beautiful thought, and I have some follow-ups for you when we finish speaking to Bernard, who has joined us from Mamprobi. Bernard, thank you. Welcome to GBC News and GTV. What do you have to contribute to our conversation today?
Hello, good afternoon.
We're listening to you.
I'm grateful to be part of this discussion. Thelma Taki, we are grateful for you from Temasco.
Anchor right.
Anchor right. We are grateful for you. We are all discussing about you. We are proud of you, and you have made Temasco very proud. Temasco students, we are proud of you. And, Independence Day, let me come back. It's something that we need to reflect on our past and move ahead. Now we have a new government. Let's all reflect on our past experience. Let's forge ahead in unity and move ahead. You see, and doing these things, it will rather unite us more, and then we are going to be more of a very prosperous country. This is my humble submission to this discussion. But Temasco, we are proud of you.
Anchor Bernard, thank you. Neil Nisi Optima, nothing but the best is good enough.
Kolegono is proud of you.
Panana. Shout out to the crew at Kolegono and all my guys there at Biggest Pub and all of you who are watching me. I know where this call is coming from. It's from the pocket. But thank you for adding your voice. So he's made a key call. He said that we should look forward. We'll take one last caller and then we'll wrap up the conversation in a few minutes. But when we do get someone on the line, we will. Bernard makes the point that we need to just look forward, learn our lessons from the past, and then move beyond it. Antiska, you were making the point about teaching our children the local language. The struggle, and I've heard my chiefs speak about this, chiefs from different Ga communities, is that we are speaking Ga with these children. And when they go to school, nobody speaks Ga there. So nobody understands what my little nephew is saying. He wants to communicate with his teachers, but he speaks Ga. The teachers do not speak Ga. They are in a school in Greater Accra, and this applies to other languages in other parts of the country. So I'm just speaking from the experience that I have had in Accra. We are in a school in Greater Accra. First of all, there are not enough Ga teachers to go around the schools who are teaching them the languages. where there are local language teachers, the possibility of it being another language, one of the Akan languages, Kwapimtwi, Asante-Twi, and the others, is more realistic. And so we are finding a lot more of these languages. If you are in Accra, your second, third language, and the teacher doesn't understand you if you don't also speak English. So you go and say, I'm going to bring the gloga, you know, because at basic level, you are taught to use the mother tongue more. The teacher doesn't know no need the gloga, no chon. But I'll be back to pick your thoughts on that, on how our schools are sometimes, you know, feeding the impression that you need to speak English with your child, because if they go to school, they will not understand. We have a last caller on the line. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. What's your name?
My name is Etonam. Good afternoon to you all.
Pleasure to have you join us.
Day to all Ghanaians.
A very, very, very happy Independence Day to you as well. What's your contribution to our chat today?
I'm a very
Ghana
proud
on the path?
Ghanaian. I love my country. Just about 2 weeks ago, I was telling someone that even if someone should give me a free ticket to go outside this country, I'm not sure I'm ready for it. Maybe something else will come up before I will change my mind. But for now, I'm comfortable in my country. I'm so proud. And I'm doing my best to teach my children the same thing. And I pray that all Ghanaians also pick up that and be proud of their country.
What
For
do you
me,
do,
so far,
Etonam?
so good. My suggestion is that we all as Ghanaians, we should love our country. We should do our best for the country. If you are there at your corner and you are not doing anything to brighten your corner, and you are expecting other people to do, they will not do it. So you do your own, I do my own, and our country will go forward. Happy Independence Day to everyone. Please, one more on the education. I've noticed that in Accra here, currently, most schools are teaching the Akan language. When I was in school, I learned Ga. So I was thinking maybe every region per the language, the local language, that's how they teach it. But I've noticed that these days, Akan language are being taught in most of the schools. I want to know why, because I'm interested in knowing the reason why it is like that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Everyone. And once again, happy Independence Day.
We're wishing you very much the same, and just the sentiments that we were echoing, right? Because it's a challenge. I get it. And I've had, you know, my friends from other tribes come to say, you know what, we've moved to Accra, we are not originally from here, and a lot more of the Accra residents do not necessarily speak Ga. So for those who hold that mentality, it doesn't make sense to teach the Ga language in schools in Accra when, because of the cosmopolitan nature of the population, a lot more people, in their opinion, speak the other Akan languages. Where do you stand in all this?
It raises all kinds of thoughts and reactions in my mind. First of all, there were gone are the days where Ga, Accra language, was the language that even people go to schools in the Volta region and learn Ga in the schools because it was cool to speak Ga. And I'm not just singling out Ga, it's just what used to happen back in the day. Now, it is true that if you're in a certain region, it makes sense to be. A lot of times when people, I speak Ga pretty well. I grew up speaking, I speak Krobo. My mom is Krobo, my dad is Ewe, I speak Ewe, I speak Ga, and then I speak some Twi. And I don't remember how I learned all these languages. I came to Ghana, I went to the UK as a baby, as a little kid, and then came to Ghana, and I don't remember how I learned all these languages, but I speak them, which means that the languages were happening around me, and I can't pinpoint where I picked them up from. And I would say that each region should be able to teach the kids the language of that region. As for the
some
debates,
regions have multiple languages. So Greater
Yes.
Accra, we have the Ga, and then we also have the Dangwe, and there's an in-between one, that's the Ga people and the Dangwe people will understand, but there's the typical Dangwe that the Ga person will not understand. There's a typical Ga that the typical
person
you know,
wouldn't understand.
Dangwe person or Krobo person may not understand.
And that is where there should be some consensus or sought from the people themselves. So you go to, say, Ningo Pampram. Ningo Pampram is a place where they speak Ga, they speak Dangbe,
and Ewe,
and they speak Ewe. So what is the consensus that the people are coming up with so that you feed that into the education system? I still don't think that school is where I need to learn my father's language. I strongly feel that way. Even though my father never really spoke Ewe to me, I had to pick it up because my grandmother spoke nothing else but Ewe. So if you're going to go on vacation in Keta and you're going to spend time with that woman, you better understand what it is that you need to, how you need to communicate with her. And that has been a blessing. I think it is always an advantage if your child is able to pick up another language, another local language, rather than, like you said to the caller before, complain about why they would be speaking Ewe or whatever. See it as an advantage. And I have to say something to Etonam. She reminded me of President Kennedy, who said, ask not what your country would do for you, but what you would do for your country. And I absolutely resonate with that sentiment.
Dr. Aditi, what do you think about this whole language thing?
I think...
And the schools and even the choice of language. Let's also not forget that some schools don't have a choice because the teachers for those languages they may want are just not available. A lot more people are declining to read the elective at university because if I told... Maybe not me. My mom is pretty cool that way. But someone cannot go and tell their mom they want to go to university to learn Ga. Well, so we can appreciate some of the concerns.
Yes, I do. But again, I think we are still thinking in traditional terms.
Okay.
If there's a challenge with people who cannot speak a language because we have probably limited teachers, is that the only way to communicate? There are technological tools today that people are using to communicate. Yeah. When we go to conferences, we don't have to speak the same language, but we are able to understand the language that is being spoken.
The Google Translator.
So why have we always taken in these traditional terms that you need somebody to speak X and Y before you can communicate? And that is where we need to move forward, that there are opportunities out there. And that is, again, where I was saying that we should be thinking about how to solve the problems, rather than keep on complaining about the problems. Once we realize that there are ways of overcoming that, then we can figure out how to do that. So yes, it's okay that we should go in there and speak the language. But again, it's also the way that people think about the language, that even if I leave school, what am I going to do with it? I've said earlier that many of our students or kids are thinking about jobs. So their thinking is that if I learn Ga or Chi or Ewe, what am I going to do with it? But clearly now we are seeing a shift. Many of the local stations, local in quotes, are employing people who can get jobs in these spaces now. In my field, for instance, as an Africanist, without speaking the local language, I can't do ethnographic studies. I've even worked in the telco, and I was given the opportunity to work as an operations executive because I spoke 3 languages. So people need to understand that it's a plus when you can speak these languages. We are not telling them enough that there's opportunities out there for the languages. They will need them. Now they may think they don't need them. Until I started doing my research. But when I go to the villages, I don't speak English with the chiefs. I don't speak English. And I work on the Ghana-Togo border. And as I said, it's an international language. I don't speak French. But I do my research never on the Ghana side and the Togo border. So what you realize that our opportunities when you learn this language. And I think Sika made a fantastic point. Parents should speak the language with their kids at home. It's one thing saying that we need people to instruct our kids in a particular language. It's another thing saying that kids should not speak the language at all. There are 2 issues that we are confusing here. When we were also growing up, we spoke ever at home, the neighborhood, we spoke Tree, so we all grew up, spoke a bit of Ga and all that. And she said, actually, it was at Tech that I polished my Ga, because it was cool to show the guys that were coming from the capital. So that was the issue then. But then, I don't know what happened in London. Now they are not even speaking the language at all, and that is where the issue is. We're saying that you can speak, it's not going to take anything away from you. And there are also opportunities out there when you learn these languages.
Okay.
And Thelma, just to say that I think we can appreciate the existentialist threat that some of the smaller language groups feel, like Ga, for instance, being in their own territory and yet their language is disappearing. And I think that some of my Ga brothers and sisters are also guilty of, I would speak to a person and I'm thinking, the first language they will speak to me is Tree. And I find it, sometimes I'm offended.
Worrying.
Yeah, that you would assume that automatically I should speak Twi,
Because
even though I
our
speak
good
it.
friends from the other side sometimes do not have very pleasant responses.
okay.
So when you get tired of people coming to say, I don't want to. If I say what they say, you will know the people I'm talking about. And today is a peaceful day, so let's carry
good.
on. It's just easier to sometimes shift to that language or a language.
Yes, and I love all our languages. I think all our languages are beautiful. And I think if I could speak Hausa, I want to learn Hausa, I want to learn Dangbani, I want to learn all of them because I think that you gain something rather than lose something.
No problem. So you don't speak Hausa, you don't speak Dagbani,
no,
but you do speak a Ghanaian language. I'll give you 4. You speak 4 languages. Okay, sometimes I split my tree and Fanti, so that counts.
No,
you
I
see?
don't. Well,
if I split my tree and I get
Ewe, Krobo, Gan, Chi.
Okay, so in your final remark, which language would you choose to speak in? I want you to make your final remark in a Ghanaian language. Okay. So here, look in there and speak to the people.
I'm going to make it in Ga because that's the language I feel most comfortable.
2 for Ga people.
I'm most comfortable. Here on your Akeshi, Remo Fair, Remo Nuba, you Ghana, Ehia, Ejake, Echon Henoje, Conyo, you won your me, Remo, Ehikaha, Manle. That's all I can say.
Okay. If you can speak your brother or sister's language, it's good
for the country.
Imagine if you find yourself in trouble and you speak a language and someone hears you. When you're on buses in some countries, just by the tone of your voice, someone walks up to you and say, "Oh, are you Ghanaian?" And immediately you feel you're not alone anymore. So language is really, really important.
And my Ewe brothers and sisters, don't hate me for this. My Ewe is not, tip-top.
It's not party like that.
But you can't sell me on any slave ship.
Okay. My dak madam is here, maybe. Egbe independence day, mekata mile dede. Mekata miafa miawadeka. Miakbele amisema amichichong to canal aiji.
So today is Independence Day. We should all come together and be one so that we'll help each other to go forward.
You see? I didn't understand, but she did because she knows the language. But we are glad that you've joined this conversation and you've also contributed immensely to it. Dr. Edem Adote is a senior research fellow at the Institute of African Studies, University of Ghana. Doc, thank you so much. And Sika Wono is a consultant, business development and leadership management expert. And she has also joined our conversation. Auntie Sika, a pleasure to have sat with you.
Thank you so much
this afternoon. We want to acknowledge the person who gave us all these outfits that we've won today, Nana Ohui Royals, located at Teshi. You can reach her on 0244 369-663. Nana Ohui Royals at Teshi. You can reach her on 0244 369-663. She has all this and more on offer, male and female, and you can reach out to her. Thank you so much, Auntie Nana, for the support that you've given us this Heritage Month on GBC. Remember also that LSTV is partnering with Trek Ghana to bring you the Volta experience on the weekend of 22nd and 23rd March. Get the opportunity to travel to the Volta region, stay one night, climb the Afaja Mountain, go to the Vli Falls, the Monkey Sanctuary, and enjoy other activities over the 2 days. Accommodation and all those activities, including your feeding, is captured in a cool budget of 1,599 Ghana cedis per head for the 2 days. Both days, you are being transported from GBC on the 22nd and back to GBC on the 23rd. All that it has been taken care of. So join the LS train as we reach out this Heritage Month to learn more about ourselves. Afi nyongmai ekpa kekpa nyosone ni womanhie nyelo kenkle Dr. Kwame Nkrumah da momam kejemfe hie ni ewie ake Ghana ni achole Gold Coast ehe keje blofo me adin ni ngmene wonye wo gbidron alo wo afi Ghana bi fe nye damuashi ni wo fia ekome ni wono Keje wodenche wohi. Keje pimo kehe fimumi. It's been 68 years since Dr. Kwame Nkrumah declared Ghana, then Gold Coast, independent from British colonial rule. It's time for all of us to unite and bring ourselves back from economic hardship. This is where we end our coverage. We want to say a big thank you to all of you who have watched us on GBC News, on GTV, across our platforms, Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, and on GTV Ghana. If you listen to us on Unique FM, thanks to you as well. From all of us at the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, we are wishing you a very, very happy 68th Independence Anniversary. Bye-bye for now.